Thank you all for being here today. We are still reeling from the incidents of Metro surge, and silence is not an option. So we're here to continue to have the conversation around what the impact has been on our state, and then also what we can do as a legislative body to have accountability, but also provide resources for those that have been harmed the most. My name is Representative Cedric Frazier, District 43A, covering the cities of Crystal and New Hope, and I'm also the co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee for the DFL side. The headlines may have moved on, but our state has not. Minnesota is still living with the devastating impacts of Operation Metro Surge, and we are standing here today because silence is not an option. No matter where you stand on the political spectrum, you cannot deny what happened here. In just 10 weeks under occupation, Metro Surge destabilized our local economies, separated families, detained American citizens, disrupted our schools, and deeply damaged our workforce. Emerging reports continue to reveal the full scale of this federal assault and political retribution. And federal cases are finally being heard to adjudicate the violence and harm that ICE and federal agents brought to our communities. Minnesotans right now are living calculated lives, weighing how to pay rent, put food on the table, afford a doctor's visit. This is not the American dream our ancestors bled and fought for. That is fear, and fear is not governance, it is a weapon. We have been here before. When COVID hit, it didn't just take lives, it took livelihoods, stability, and exposed every crack in our social contract. Minnesotans legislators stepped up. We passed legislation, we invested in recovery. We showed that government could be a resource for the people, not a threat to them. When George Floyd was murdered on a street corner in our own state, the world reacted. But it was Minnesotans and Minnesotan legislators who did the hard work that followed. We passed accountability legislation. We had the courage to look at systems that were failing our people, and we demanded better. We did not wait for someone else to act. That is the standard we set. That is the legacy we carry into this moment. Because what Metro Surge has done to the state is no different in its impact. Families fractured, communities destabilized, economies disrupted, children traumatized. The mechanism is different, the harm is the same. Under DFL leadership, we have moved urgently to build a responsible budget that addresses these needs. But I want to be honest with you, we cannot backfill all of the economic damage that Metro Surge has caused on our people. This moment requires all of us. So today I'm calling on our GOP colleagues directly. Look at what has happened to the state. Acknowledge the harm, not as a political concession, but as a human one. And then let's respond with the urgency that Minnesotans deserve. Minnesota has a track record of rising. We rose above COVID. We rose after the murder of George Floyd. We built accountability where there was none and invested in recovery where there was devastation. We will rise from this too. But rising requires action. It requires leadership, and it requires every member of this legislative body to decide whose side of history that we want to be on. I know where I stand, and I know where my DFL colleagues stand, and we stand with Minnesotans. With that said, I will pause for the next speaker.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Rep. Frazier. I appreciate you continuing to bring light and continuing to tell our story. Good morning, I'm Brenda Lewis, Superintendent of Fridley Public Schools. Fridley Public Schools is a school district of just under 2,800. We are 40% children that racially identify as Black, 26% children that identify as Hispanic Latino, and we're just under 20% of our children are white. We are heavy East African, heavy West African, so if you think about the demographics, you can understand why, while it's not justified, we were definitely a targeted district within the metro by ICE Metro Surge. As Rep. Frazier talked about, the damage is still ongoing. Just because the headlines have passed doesn't mean that we are still not feeling the impact. At the height of ICE Metro Surge, we had 423 students enrolled in virtual learning. We did not have a virtual learning program before ICE Metro Surge. At our highest, we had 112 students that weren't with us now, that were with us in January. That were with us in December. We are now at 72 students that are not with us. Where are those students? Students have moved out of the country, moved out of the state, students that are being held in facilities in Texas, and also we don't know where some of our students are. This is still the reality in Fridley Public Schools and the reality in other districts that you'll hear from today. When you think about the fiscal impact, think about the loss of that revenue of the students that we once had that were included in our October 1 count. This isn't something that's forecasted for next year. These are budgets that were already set for this school year that were based on students that we had that were enrolled and attending Fridley Public Schools. If you think about that, it's over $1 million of impact. There was a very good story that aired in the Star Tribune this weekend, written by Mara Clucker, that talks about all of the fiscal impacts upon schools, not even including the ICE Metro surge. So if you think about this in combination with some unfunded mandates that are happening, as well as loss of compensatory ed funds, these hit districts very, very hard. My district and the district that you're going to hear from soon also have serious impacts. So I just ask you to continue to understand that ICE Metro surge impact is not over. The fear is real, and the fiscal impact for school districts will be felt for many years to come. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mary Granlund. I'm school board chair of Columbia Heights Public Schools, which many of you know has been targeted in a number of ways during the surge. Again, I'm very grateful for the legislators who are up here fighting for our communities and our schools, our students, our families. Without these important voices continuing to speak loudly, like as was said, we know that the news media may move on, but Metro Surge has not. The impact that we have, that we see is going to be here for years to come. Our school district is rather scrappy. I like to describe it as such. We are incredibly careful with our finances. As Dr. Lewis stated, school district funding is largely not decided by us, it's decided by the legislature and also the businesses within our communities. Because of our small size, we don't have the business tax base that many of our other neighboring communities and school districts have. And ensuring that our businesses in our community survive, but not just survive, thrive, is so important to not only our individual communities, but our school districts and the larger Minnesota as a whole. It's imperative that we continue to support businesses and those folks that are working hard, because otherwise, when those businesses close, and we have had a number of businesses close throughout the metro because of this, those costs end up shifting unfairly to homeowners. We are a working class community, and our homeowners are tired of having to constantly bear the burden of funding when unfunded mandates are passed, and when the government comes in and decides that they are going to take apart families and students and decimating our communities as a whole. As a working class community, we cannot continue to shift the cost burden onto homeowners or cut classes, cut teachers, close important programs that drive the innovation that we know is coming. It is imperative that we continue to support all of these things so that we can make it through the devastation, again, that is going to be lasting, not just for years, largely for decades. This is the first time in a number of years that we have more people leaving the country than coming in. Our country was, Columbia Heights was founded over 100 years ago by immigrants. We continue to largely be an immigrant-focused community and supported community. We love our immigrant neighbors. We are all immigrants ourselves, and we ask that we continue to support our school district, our community, because our kids are our future, and if we are not supporting them, what are we even doing here? Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Leanne Rasajak, CEO of Women Venture, a community development financial institution. I'm also the board chair of our CDFI coalition that serves all of Minnesota. CDFI supports small businesses and housing, and we're also known as an economic first responder. We are here today because Minnesota small businesses need immediate strategic relief. This is not a normal economic moment. It is a compounded disruption. Small businesses across our state are navigating unprecedented federal law enforcement activity that's disrupting workforce and customer behaviors. Tariffs are driving up the cost of goods and inventory, false fraud narratives eroding trust in critical systems, rising fuel and basic need costs tied to global instability, and those costs continue to rise week over week. These pressures stack, and when they stack, businesses don't bend, they break. We are hearing the same story across Minnesota. Revenue is down, costs are up, confidence is shaken. We came into 2026 with several of our clients anticipating double-digit revenue growth, and instead, they had their teams, employees, sheltering in place. Business owners were shifting growing their business to instead ensuring that their employees had food on the table, rental assistance, and were safe. We've already seen over $213 million in lost revenue across Twin Cities corridors in just weeks. Millions more to come as we survey and capture data across the state. I've heard stories and talked with clients from Mankato to Wilmer, from Rochester to St. Cloud. Businesses are making hard decisions right now. They're cutting hours, delaying hires, pausing growth, or altogether scrapping projects that they had already committed to. At Women Venture, we recently sat with childcare providers in Wilmer, small business owners who are holding together our workforce system. Keep in mind, Minnesota was already navigating a childcare crisis. We have fallen off the cliff. These childcare providers are navigating instability that they did nothing to create. There were ICE agents waiting outside of their childcare centers. You have parents that have been on patrol in the morning and in the afternoon, and that activity continues. Companies like Busy Baby and Orenco are facing rising production costs deeply impacted by tariffs while demand becomes less predictable. The business is strong, the environment is not. These are just a couple of stories that we know of, and who are willing to stand up and share their stories. There are many people that are too afraid to share the realities of what's happened to their small businesses. So why does this matter? CDFIs are economic first responders. We are already restructuring loans, deploying capital, and working to stabilize businesses in real time. But we cannot carry systemic disruption alone. In the first 2 weeks of January, our team at Women Venture fielded more than 100 crisis calls from small business owners from across the state. Since then, we have served hundreds more. If we do not act, the consequences are clear. Business closures, job loss, and long-term damage to our economy, our Main Street economies across the entire state of Minnesota. And we have worked hard to rebuild from the pandemic, and that work has been decimated. What we need is flexible capital for businesses quickly through trusted partners before temporary disruption becomes permanent loss. And this isn't charity. This is economic strategy for our state. Now is the time for leadership that is grounded in both strategy and compassion. We need to protect Minnesota's economy. This is the work of our time. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Esther Agbadje. I represent District 59B, which covers parts of Minneapolis. As you've heard from our testifiers and commentators today, ICE is still here. The effect that they've had through Operation Metro Surge is we're still feeling those effects from schools, businesses, people who need to stay in their homes. But Minnesotans have led the nation in showcasing the power of community organizing. And we've conducted thousands of constitutional observer trainings and building grassroots rapid response networks and mutual aid networks, and we've saved lives and protected our communities. Minnesotans are hurting right now, though, due to the fact that we have presented bills that can help not only our renters, our business owners, our schools, but we've been facing reluctance and opposition from our Republican counterparts. We came back to the Capitol after enduring some of the most painful and heartbreaking moments our state has ever faced during Operation Metro Surge, to hold federal ICE agents accountable, and also to protect ourselves from the various whims of this federal administration. But throughout the session, we continue to see resistance. And sometimes we even see some of our Republican colleagues blaming our neighbors for protecting one another, or worse, claiming that our neighbors were at fault for their own deaths. But here in the Minnesota House, while it is tied, we only need our Republicans, whether it's one or more, to look at the humanity of the situation and prioritize the well-being and safety of Minnesotans. And while this is hard to do, I hope that our colleagues will courageously join us in acknowledging and trying to rectify the harms done to Minnesotans. The best solution would be for the federal government to hold themselves accountable and rectify the problems that they've caused here in Minnesota. But until that time, we will continue to use the power that we have here in the state to ensure that we are protecting and securing Minnesotans, not only their livelihoods, but ensuring that they are able to thrive from here on out. I think we have one more speaker. No? Okay, all right. So then I'll move to questions.
What about Republican authorship? Obviously, in the House, you need Republican author, Republican vote. Community, St. Cloud was mentioned, Wilmer was mentioned. Are those key places? Do you have any progress there?
Those are, thank you for the question. Those are key places because we want to be sure that folks know this wasn't just a Metro, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County issue. This was a statewide issue. It had been a statewide issue before the surge. Things were already operating and happening around the state out in greater Minnesota. So we're trying to be very clear with the testimony and remarks from folks that have been impacted around the state so that our Republican colleagues know that this was in your community as well as everyone else's
And
community.
they would get aid? It wouldn't be weighted to the Twin Cities or Metro?
This aid that we're providing would be for the statewide to help everyone.
And dollar amount? How do you accurately, there've been a lot of estimates, but what's in the bill and what do you think the real number is as well?
The current bill does not have a number in it. We're going to negotiate that. I would like to see something around the area of $100 million, and then we can talk through how we get that dollar amount out to individuals. We will use our CDFIs. We will work with our local community groups that have been working closely with our small businesses and community organizations to get those resources out.
How do you keep this issue sort of in the headlines, in the focus of not just folks in this building, but the broader Minnesota public?
I'll take it. Well, broader Minnesota and the folks that have been impacted have not forgotten. They're still feeling that pain. So we will continually bring individuals to the Capitol. We will continue to be the voices for those individuals. We will not let let what has happened to us in our state, we will not let it go away. We will not be silenced, and we will continue to raise those voices.
There were Republican lawmakers at the time all this was going on that were expressing maybe concerns is the right word with the manner in which things were being handled. Do you think the issue is that those members don't want to break from caucus? Are they not on the right committees to get these bills through? What's the holdup, you think, with some of those members?
No, I think those members were being honest and transparent when they made those comments, and I appreciated seeing them when they came. Could they have come earlier? I think so, because for many of those members, these operations were happening in their communities prior to the Metro Surge being implemented at the beginning of late end of last year and large part at the beginning of this year. There are some of those members on key committees. Co-chair Baker is on the workforce committee. These things absolutely happen in his committee. He was one of the individuals from the Republican side that spoke up and said it was impacting the businesses and the communities where he lives and represents. So that encourages me that there are individual members on the Republican side that have had that direct communication from their community that they've been harmed and they need some help.
Do you think there's a compromise maybe that could be reached with some of those members to get them on board with this legislation? What might that look like?
I think there could be a compromise. I think it's going to be. I can't say exactly what it's going to look like now, but I think there's conversations we can have. I think there's things we can work with together and identify that where we can move forward together and get the resources out to the communities that need it.
Rep. Baker may have acknowledged that there's some damage to businesses in his community, but their leadership says that a lot of this is hearsay, if not all of it. How do you kind of address somebody who doesn't acknowledge that this is the reality that your communities are facing?
I don't think you can ignore these individuals standing here. they've been directly impacted. That's not hearsay. These are people speaking directly to the harm that's been caused in their communities. We will continue to bring these individuals forward to provide their testimony, and we also have individuals directly from the communities of our Republican colleagues that will also be testifying.
And that's happening today? You have people from those communities?
That is correct.
Do you have any sense of dollar amount or number of businesses in some of those areas? Again, like the St. Clouds, Wilmers, those?
I don't have specific numbers from those businesses, but they'll be speaking to those numbers during their testimony.
Does this become an election issue if you're not able to get this across the finish line this year?
I think that's the question you should ask for our Republican colleagues if we don't get this across the finish line. Our community members here, I think all of Minnesotans see what we're fighting for. It's really up to them to come along and do what's best for the rest of Minnesotans.
Dr. Lewis gave some numbers really of the impact, and I'm wondering, Board Chair Granlund, if you in Columbia Heights, I know the Ecuadorian community especially was hard hit, and I wonder if you have any kind of actual numbers that can show us the impact.
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you for that question. Yes. Right now, as Dr. Lewis had stated, budgets have been approved, a year ago, and now we are looking at very similar numbers. We had, in our school district, we have 3,400 students, and we have, when we shifted to online learning, we had 800 students taking online classes. Again, much like Dr. Lewis said about Fridley District, our district also did not have virtual Heights set up for K through 12. And so we, again, asked our teachers to pivot. The cost that we're looking at, we just in losing the numbers that we have, just students, again, also leaving the country, leaving the state, leaving the community because it was not safe here in Minnesota for them. We're looking at also a deficit of around $1 million, and that is before we start talking about the compensatory aid funding that we're also losing. And just so I am clear, $1 million, maybe when we're talking about numbers like 100 million, as Representative Frazier said, that doesn't sound like a lot. That is equivalent to 40 teachers. That is equivalent to an entire elementary school. And I want people to sit with that number because that is a loss. That is an absolute devastation to our communities because we in Columbia Heights Public Schools, in Columbia Heights, Southern Fridley, and Hilltop, we have a number of teachers and other support staff who live in the community and also work in our school district. So that devastation, again, is not just limited to our schools. It's not limited to an elementary school, a middle school, a high school. It impacts the entirety of our communities. And then it impacts the rest of the state. Because when we are not investing in our students, when we are having to find new and novel ways to continue to cut and cut as far away from the classroom until we can no longer cut that, that is a devastation for communities for decades to come. Thank you.
Representative Frazier, we're in kind of this back stretch of the session where we might start seeing leadership negotiating some of these bigger issues. Where does this sit for you as far as priorities in that, heading into that season?
It always has been. Since the moment the surge was here, when we lost Renee Good, we lost Alex Preddy, we had Mrs. Solis shot. It's a top priority. We've heard all of these individuals speak about the impact and the harm that's happened in their community. It has been a top priority. It will remain a top priority until we gavel out.
And legal matter, I don't know if you heard later today, Ramsey County Sheriff and Ramsey County Attorney are investigating an incident where federal law enforcement agents may have committed the crimes of kidnapping, burglary, and false imprisonment. Have you heard about this and any comment about that happening?
I have not heard about that yet, but I think we've all seen and we've heard the statements from witnesses that were impacted during Metro Surge, community members and neighbors. It doesn't surprise me that they would be investigating issues like that.
And do you think there should be charges, more legal action from county, state level? You know, what on that, the attorney hat, if you can put it on?
I think there will be. I think they will investigate. I think obviously you'll have due process, you'll have investigation, which due process was not being allowed. The Constitution was not being followed. State law was not being followed. I think all those things will be investigated. I think we will see charges in the coming months.
And could that help momentum on these bills if there are factual law enforcement investigations?
I think we have factual testimony from individuals who are impacted. We just heard a school board member say it, $1 million impact. That is factual. I don't think we need an investigation in a criminal sense to know and feel, and we've heard what's happened in our communities. We know that what's been factual is that there's a lot of pain that's happened, and we're still reeling from it. And as legislators, as leaders, we need to do something about that.